Okay.
Okay, so
hello everybody. Hello guys. Happy Sunday. Okay, so today we'll be going through we'll be talking about a different aspect of cybersecurity. Can you guys hear me very clearly? Let me be sure.
Yes, Sonny.
Okay.
yes.
Okay. So I said for today we'll be going through a different aspect of cybersecurity, which will be the defensive aspect of security, and it's this skill is very important for every cybersecurity that want to grow their career as a SOC analyst, as a cybersecurity analyst. So one important solution for you to learn is SIEM. You know, so SIEM is a very important solution because without SIEM, you can't gather logs. For example, you can't analyze logs and you can't find a way to predict or monitor events that are happening within your network. So I'll just do a brief intro about SIEM, then before we go straight into Splunk. And I think I just before the meeting starts, I shared a PDF, just a Word document with Toby and what's his name? I forgot him again.
Okay, I will share.
Roland. Okay, so I shared that with them so that they can share with you guys, so you can follow up, because the lab for this for the Splunk solution is not, you are not required to download anything. So it's more like a cloud workspace where you just create an account, and get things working. So let's go ahead. So the first thing I would like to talk about is evolution of SIEM, right? Before SIEM actually gets started, there was a solution they call security information management or system information management, a way of managing information system, in the organization. Then they move on to what we call security event management. So events like logs, logon events, different window process events. There are different events, and these events have event IDs, that are generated every now and then. There are organizations that generate up to over 100,000 events in a minute or in a second, because of the large number of endpoints on that environment. And also, then there was an era where we move on to what we call network-based analysis, where we are analyzing packets to know if it is stateful or stateless, packet analysis, So, and also we move on to what we call log management, because of course, since we are generating SIEM, since we are generating events, since we are generating events, there's also a need for us to find a way to manage our logs, especially for audit, for compliance purpose, to understand the nature of our network, our infrastructure, and how they are doing. But now, what is SIEM? SIEM is a combination of both security information management and security event management. The collation of the two is what we call SIEM. And for this class, we'll be using Splunk as our case study, as a major solution. And one good thing about Splunk is that to some extent, it's one of the best, like a leader in the SIEM industry, one of the leaders, because of the flexibility. And one thing about Splunk also is that it's not just used by cybersecurity analysts. Statisticians use Splunk to analyze data, to make sense of data analysis, data mining, also use Splunk. So it's a very broad solution. So let me go on to our next slide. So why do organizations consider SIEM? For example, you can't have a bank, you can't set up a bank or a financial institution without having a sort of SIEM, within your IT infrastructure. Is something that is very crucial. And why is it crucial? One is that you want to be able to answer critical questions around your cybersecurity posture. Which event should be gathered? because there are a lot of events. You want to be able to streamline to say, okay, which event should I prioritize in my environment? For example, how do we manage vast amounts of logs and information? Because these logs are generated every now and then. What do we do to manage these logs, and ensure that we make sense of the logs, to understand or to monitor what is happening with our logs? Because the first step towards understanding the posture, the security posture in your environment, is making sense of your log, prioritizing important log in your environment. That is, if you don't have visibility about your log, then there's a possibility that you are being compromised and you don't know it. And that's the reality on the ground. So many organizations today are compromised and they don't know it. Now, the third is what and how do we pass, normalize, and find a way to have time correction of our log, to correlate our logs. How should this event be stored is another question that also should be answered. How should we store events? Now, also identifying if events are stored. For example, how do we identify data breach internally or externally? And how do we mitigate, which is critical? And lastly, how do we meet compliance? These are critical questions that organizations need to ask themselves. And using Splunk, in a way, help to solve most of these issues, give an answer to more of these questions, right? Now, let's move on to the next slide. So if I'm rushing, please let me know. And if you have any question, please let me know. Don't wait till I'm done with the slide, so that I know where you understand, if you guys are following me. And I think somebody is asking a question. Okay, does X in the SIEM means system or security? Okay, so recently most people used to say X means security, while other people go with the SIEM. System. So some people call it system information management, some people call it security information management, but all the like is more of security, because SIEM is security. Okay, so now we can't talk about SIEM if we are not going to discuss about SOC, because the major purpose of SIEM is to be used in a SOC environment. So what is a SOC? Security Operations Center. Most companies in Nigeria outsource their SOC to maybe cybersecurity consulting firm, while other companies, right, have an internal SOC team. Just like an IT department, they also have like a SOC department. Sorry, is someone saying something? I should go
on. Sorry, please, you can continue. We'll have questions will come after the class.
Oh, okay. So a SOC is an establishment within an organization responsible for monitoring, analyzing, and assessing the organization's security posture 24/7. So SOC is that department that ensures that. Okay. So SOC is that department that ensures that we are monitoring the events, we are analyzing, and we are also assessing these events, right? So that is very important. And these are the things that SOC do. The first things that it detects, they prevent, also using by monitoring the events within using the SIEM solution. They monitor events, and so that they can see what is happening. Maybe there's an anomaly that is happening. And also, after detecting events, what they do next is to find out the root cause investigation. They try and find out the root cause. What is the vector? How did this threat come into our network? Is it through phishing? Is it through spear phishing? Right? Is it through drive-by download, or is it through maybe a network file, or an open port in our network, or do we have enough Do we have compliance in terms of installing antivirus solutions on our endpoint? So they want to understand and investigate the root cause analysis, right? Then, of course, log management. Management is very critical. I think in Nigerian financial institution, you are required to keep at least 6 months of logs for audit purpose. 6 months. Some keeps record for. I've worked with organization that keeps record for about a year. You understand? So we also have threats and incident response. These are activities that happen in the log. Then lastly is continuous proactive monitoring. So that is where pen testing comes in, what's it called, vulnerability assessment comes in. So for proactive monitoring, you are not waiting until there's a detection. You are trying to go against your network, find a way to find the porosity in your network, vulnerability in your network. You are not waiting for hackers to do that for you. You want to see how porous your network is. That's what continuous proactive monitoring is, using pen testing and what's it called again? Vulnerability assessment scanning. So that's what they do. Then let me go on to the next slide. Okay, so the question now is, how does a SIEM work? How does a SIEM work? What is the architecture of a SIEM? What is the main function of this SIEM we are talking about? The first thing is that a SIEM, what does is to collect, store, analyze, investigate, and report on logs. These are the major function of a SIEM. It first collects those logs. Then, if you can see down here, what I have, collect data from log sources. So log sources could be your router, your firewall, your endpoint, any form of what's it called? Any form of gadgets in your infrastructure. It could even be your mobile phones. Yes, it could be your mobile phones. So any form of kind of gadgets that users use within your network, you can collect logs from it, right? Then the next thing is that it's and how does it collect the log is a question. So what happens is that you can install an agent on each of those endpoints. Like if you have 50 systems in your company right now, you have to install an agent that will be forwarding those logs to the Splunk or to the SIEM dashboard. You understand, to the SIEM server, so that those logs will be collected and normalized, right? So the next thing after collecting the log is to correlate events. So correlation is to say, okay, if we have several events happening, for example, we have maybe a PowerShell attack happened today. Tomorrow, maybe another PowerShell attack happened tomorrow in another system. And we have 10 systems, and there is a PowerShell attack that is happening to this system at different time interval. SIEM has the ability to correlate this event such that if you are searching for PowerShell attack, it will bring out the timestamp and the system that have been affected, right? So that is what correlation does. It correlates the event, find a link. It does that by indexing, having some sort of link to say, okay, this event has happened to this system. It is also similar to what has happened to this system. So therefore, this is the event is similar to so amount of systems. So you can make sense to say, okay, these are the number of systems that are impacted. So you can't do that in isolation. You need a form of solution that like a dashboard to collect this event and make sense of it. So the third one is alert security incident, alert security. So you can say, okay, if we have 10 failed logon attempts in 2 minutes, send alerts to this email. You can configure your SIEM to do that, to say if we have 50 systems and in any of these 50 systems, we have failed logon attempts in maybe 5 minutes, in any of these systems, send an alert. So that could be a form of brute force attack, right? So you can get alert for incidents, then also generate IT security and compliance reports, then archive logs for forensic analysis. You understand? So this is just a simple flow of how SIEM works. Let me move on to the next slide. Okay, so the thing is, okay, why is SIEM important? Like I said, a lot of organizations can generate so much some even terabytes of data, events in seconds, in days. So a SIEM has the ability to make sure that you can prioritize events and help you spot security issues. That is very important. So that's why organization makes use of SIEM. Now, a SIEM will help you convert machine events. So the events that the SIEM will get, most of these events are machine raw data, right? They look like this. So you will see these are events, for example, raw machine event. If you go to your event viewer now on your system, right, and you try and view and you try to view the event, you will see that most of the logs are just like this. You can't make sense. It's going to take time, hours, some days, you even make sense of this kind of log. So what SIEM does is to collect this kind of events and make sense of those events. It will normalize the events. It will now correlate those events and ensure that it now add indexes to those events, so you can search for data, and report on those data. Right. So let's talk about the architecture of a SIEM. What are the major components of a SIEM? What are the major components of a SIEM? First of all, we have the system input. Now, the top here, we have a system input. The system input, right? These are data that is coming from endpoints, routers, firewall, IDS, IPS. They're about all the kind of gadgets you have as system input. So those data, those events coming from them are what we regard as system input. Now, when those events comes in, right, you can have event data, you can have contextual data. So like you see, event data can be operating system logs, application logs, device or database logs, right? So contextual data too can be user information, asset information, threat intelligence, right? They come into the SIEM. Now, the SIEM has a component here in this part, right? In this event data or contextual part that will ensure that they are collecting the events on a regular basis. So it could be hourly, it could be in 2 hours based on how you schedule it, right? It will collect the events and move it to the and ensure that it move it to the SIEM server. Once the SIEM gets this event, the SIEM will display the events on its dashboard, so that you can search, you can analyze and report, so that those are what SIEM does. So it has its own engine that does the data collection, the normalization, and aggregation of these logs so that you can make sense of it. So very important. Now, this is like a little workflow of how this is like a little workflow of how the SIEM work. So let's say, for example, we have a desktop here, we have a router here, we have a switch, we have some servers here, we have other like a firewall. So you can see that an agent is installed on each of these gadgets, right? Endpoints. Then you can move your syslog, you can move your WMI logs, whatever logs you application security logs, window event logs, Linux logs can be sent. Now, these logs will go to what we call a receiver. So generally, in a general architecture for SIEM, they are called receiver, but different vendors have each their name for receiver. Like for Splunk, they call it forwarder. But in the general context, it's a receiver. It receives the logs from the different components, right? When it receives the log, the first thing the receiver does is to pass. To pass the log means bring in the logs, right? Bringing the log the way it is. Normalize the log is to say, okay, this is the log events that you have. This is what we can make sense. If you have 20 parameter in the log, now the SIEM can say, okay, out of these 20 parameters, 15 are the major critical ones that I can display, right? Aggregate the log. It will also help you to aggregate those logs, by making sure that they are indexed. So it will add some sort of index parameters to them so that you can search for them easily, right? So this is what the receiver does. Then it moves it to the manager. That's so on the manager part, that's where the manager will be able to display the normalized logs, right, in a dashboard format, so that you can see it. You can now search for relevant information. You will see a demo as we go on, right? So this is just how the SIEM works. It collects the raw machine data and transform them to a human readable format, right? That's easy for you to search and to analyze or to monitor. This is very critical for security, very, very critical. Okay. So this is data flow. So this is the data flow. We have a data source, which could be like the firewall, like I've said, the server, your database. It could even be from the cloud, right? So these are the different APIs or protocols: syslog, WMI, or SMB, right? We also have from a file server, we could send through file share, right? We have ODBC. These are from database and also from the cloud via an API. So this, if the event from the data source are collected, right? Collected here and normalized, right? So we normalize the assets to say, okay, what are the metadata? What are the metadata, the parameters that are critical to this log that we need to display? So once these events are normalized, then they are transported, right, to the manager, where it will be used for analysis and for indexing. Now, indexing is a way of storing the normalized log on the SIEM server, right? So, okay, this is how I have identified this log, and this is how I'm going to search for it when users are looking for details, right? So this is the security analyst that does the searching, and when you do a search, the Splunk will ensure that it checks the index where the logs are stored for those information. If it can find it, it will display it for you. If it can't, it will tell you no record found, right? So in just a nutshell, in the high level, this is how a Splunk work on the background. And it's very important that you understand how the Splunk work in the background, right? So that when you are using the tool, you will understand what is happening. Okay, so let me just quickly run through. These are major features for a SIEM, a next generation SIEM. As of today, these are what you will see on a SIEM. These are the major features for SIEM. Yeah. Okay, so log collection, log analysis, event correlation, log forensic, reporting, dashboard, user activities monitoring, very important, real-time alerting, log retention. This, in fact, if a company were to get a SIEM, these are the critical factors to look for, right? To ensure that you have a next generation SIEM, right? Not just something that's collecting log, but something that can make sense of those log. File integrity monitoring. They can see changes to file, based on the timestamp, right? Application log monitoring. These are various key features for SIEM, right? So now the next question is that if we have a SIEM setup, right? What do we look for? What are we looking for? As a security analyst, what am I looking for? What should I look for in a SIEM? Because there are thousands of events. How do I ensure that I'm looking at the right things in a SIEM? So this slide is showing us critical events that we need to monitor, right? So that if, for an example, you get alerts for this event, it is something you need to take a look at to investigate if it is a false positive or if it's a re-event. For example, new process starting. So if, for example, I've seen this, I've worked with this in so many client environments, and I'm seeing that someone is trying to use PowerShell script to start a process. Most of the time, I would tell my clients that this is not normal. They'll say, it's maybe I saw this in one of the banks, and I was telling the IT guy that this is not normal, that we need to investigate. He said, it's that the IP is coming from the IT department, is something that I said, investigate it, because if someone is starting a process using PowerShell, it's not a normal thing. That's one of the signs, the kill chain. If you understand the cyber kill chain, you understand what I'm talking about. Like, those are one of the characteristics that you see in the MITRE attack framework. Like, how will you be using PowerShell to start a process? Or, for example, let's say CMD is calling another process, a child process, to start up a new process. Why? So you want to understand why a new process is starting. What exactly is the process doing? Who is calling that process? Is there a command that is calling that process? These are critical things you want to look for. Secondly, user logon success. So like I said, in Windows, things don't just happen. Anything you do on Windows system, on your Windows system, are being logged, right? It has its own event IDs, and those event IDs are pointer to what is happening, at that time. So if you successfully log onto your system right now, this event code is captured. You understand? It's captured. So it is something you want to also see. Who is logging on? So that somebody log on successful doesn't mean that is the right right user. It could be an attacker. So if you are seeing that an IP address is concurrently logging into 10 systems at the same time, it is something for you to check. Why do we do that? Is a lateral movement, right? Somebody have hijacked my Active Directory and is trying to log on to different systems at the same time using maybe a rootkit, right? So if that logon is successful from just one IP, it is something that you have to check up, you have to investigate, right? Now, share access. So for file share, you understand, when you have file share and you're seeing that maybe a user on a particular VLAN is not expected to share file, or a particular user does not have credential, the right to share file, and you are seeing that this IP is sharing files, and you are seeing that event ID 5140, it is something that you have to pay attention to. Even if it's false positive, analyze the issue. You understand? Try and look out why is this person, if so, let me say an IP address is doing file share to 3 or 4 systems, it is something that you need to pay attention to. Like I said, it could be a sign to lateral movement, right, in a compromised network. Now we have new service installed. So also, this is also very critical. If a new service is installed, who is installing the service, at what time, what time this service is installed, and it's something that you also need to investigate, right? Network connection made. So in your firewall, so like I said, one of the last parts of the cyber security keychain is what we call data exfiltration and clearing logs, right? Data is exfiltration. So how is data exfiltrated? When a system is compromised, what happens? The attacker find a way to send that data, that sensitive data, to a command and control server outside the network, right? So what happened in that sense is that if my system is compromised at this particular time, now the rootkit or the malware find a way to connect to a CNC server, especially if my system is online. Now, if I notice on the SIEM that certain IP address are trying to connect, or certain process are trying to connect to an external IP address, it is something that you need to investigate, in your Windows firewall. Also, let me run through this file auditing, like I say, file integrity monitoring. A file is currently being changed. This is especially in the bank, where we have some certain file labeled as sensitive, confidential, and you are seeing that this file is currently being changed, maybe by an IP that shouldn't have authority, permission to view those files. It is something that you need to pay attention to. And a very common one is registry auditing. That's where I check most of the time. Because one of the things that attacker does to ensure persistency is to update your registry. So update your registry, ensure they get into your startup folder, so that when the system start up, they don't need to start up the malware. The malware is already started up automatically, because it is in your startup folder, or it is updated in your registry keys, right? So that is what attacker use to establish persistency, right? So then also Windows PowerShell command line, right? So these are very critical if you want to have what attackers does, especially if they want to carry out fileless-based attack. It is through PowerShell, C-script, or px-exec, and this is what they do. You have to check on PowerShell command. That is also a good tool for me. And then Windows Firewall changes scheduler. So the scheduler too, I've witnessed this also real time in a particular bank. So what happened was that there's a form of malware. So the malware, what's that? What's the name again? I'm trying to remember. Configure, that's the name of the malware. Configure malware. So the way it works is that it will attach itself to a scheduler, to the Windows default scheduler, so that at every scheduled time it will run. it will run. That malware is going to run. So one other logs that is very important for you to check is your scheduler task log to see what process is running per time on schedule basis, right? So this is just a summary of some of the events that you need to be monitoring.
What's it called?
Okay. Okay, so let's move to the next slide. Okay, so I did a table of this that could help us. So let me say whenever we see an event, for example, whenever we see an event 4688, these are window events IDs, very critical. So these are some of the event ID that cybersecurity analysts are even pen testers should know. Because if you are going to do pen testing and you are going to carry out privilege escalation, or find a way to bypass certain privileges, you are going to understand what window event codes are, right? So like you see on the table, for example, we have 4688. That means a new process is executed. Then what is the impact to security? Malware is executing. That is so it's just an assumption at this point until you have fully investigated. But that is what it means, that there's some sort of malware that is executing, or a malware actor is trying to take an action. So the next one is 4625. There about some account logged in. So you want to see if an attacker authenticates to an endpoint. So if an attacker get the credential of one of the staff in your office, it could use that credential to use a patch the hash method to ensure that it can authenticate to that endpoint. A shared access, this 5140 5156, this window firewall network. So what it means, especially for your window firewall network, it means like I said, data is being exfiltrated, or the malware is trying to connect to a command and control server, right? So these are also some of the other, like 4663 file and registry auditing. This is very important too. Modifications within your registry keys, because on a norm, registry key should not be modified, because it's not every time you install software, once you open an application, it doesn't or update your registry. So once there are changes in your registry, it's something that you need to pay close attention to, right? So this is, I'm just trying to go on through so that we can go on to the main part. So 6 ways a SIEM can help you stop threat. A SIEM will definitely help you detect compromised user credentials. So if you are very skilled with using a SIEM, you will know when user credentials are compromised. Understand? Also check for anomalous privilege escalation, command and control communication, like I explained earlier, data exfiltration also. For example, insertion of USB drive, using your personal email, to carry out office work, or to send sensitive data. These events can definitely be stored in your SIEM, right? Then we have rapid encryption and lateral movement. So these are 6 ways, one of the 6 ways. There are more, of course. So I think at this point, before I move on to the Splunk Enterprise, is there any question so that I can move on to this? Okay. 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 So guys, please, you are going to give me about just 2 minutes. We'll be back, please. Just about 2 minutes.
Okay, no problem. Thank you very much. So if there are questions now, please, we can type them so that when it's back, and answer them. But I'm sure the hands-on is going to answer majority of our questions. So Okay, before it comes back, how many of us on this call now did have we gone through the last try to replicate go through the commands on Kali Linux? Or do we have problems? Are we able to do it? Anyone?
Or visit our website to learn more about how you can be part of this kingdom mission. Thank you in advance.
Hello, sir.
Is anyone speaking to us? Who's speaking?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Hello, sir.
Yes, please speak.
I said I'm still having issues running it on a 32-bit system.
On a 32 bits, okay. Did you download the 32 bits?
Yes, I can.
Okay, but what if I may ask, is it Windows 10 system? Did you get that?
Windows 8.
Okay. What's the RAM?
The RAM there is 2 RAM.
2 gigabytes of RAM. Okay. 2 gigabytes of RAM. So it have been best to have a Windows 10. What is it? Okay. Let's see. I'm not so sure if the Windows 8 it will work, but the matter is the performance. Okay. Someone is raising up their hand. Speak, please.
Hello, good afternoon, everybody.
Okay, good afternoon.
Can I be heard? All right. So, relating to what the last person just said concerning the system, right? So, I was of the opinion that those kind of systems that do have low properties, like 32-bit, smaller RAM, I was thinking, I was of the opinion that using a live installer could actually make more sense on a flash drive. For a couple of people that I have helped install for this class, I suggested using a flash drive, and so far it's been awesome. None of them have ever had to complain. I recommend 16 gigabytes minimum, 16 gigabyte minimum, and they should flash the flash drive with Rufus. So flashing the flash drive with Rufus and with Kali Live, they can just boot directly and enable persistence so that they can save their files on the operating system in the flash drive. That way they don't get to lose files whenever they reboot the operating system from their flash drive. Then that way it can maximize they can maximize the full properties of their system and not even interfere with their Windows operating system. It's just my suggestion to those that might have issues installing. The live USB would be great. You should just get a flash drive. 32 gigabyte would be amazing. So give or take, the operating system should take about 10 gig after installation. Then they'll be left with about 18 to 20 gigabyte for storage, and they can have a full working Kali Linux operating system without hassle.
Yes. Thank you so much for that. So that's a perfect solution. Thank you, Noble. Thank you. So that means everyone should have their Linux now, and then we're going to come for I'm sure Nelson is going to come back soon.
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, all right. Okay.
Welcome
back.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, so I think it stops here. Okay, so yeah, I'm surprised there's no question Wow. Okay. Okay, let's move on. So apart from Splunk, we have other vendors that are providing SIEM solution like IBM, McAfee, RSA, Sophos, and the likes. They provide a Splunk solution. But like I said, one of the differentiating factor for Splunk is that it has ability for developers to create apps. So it does not just exist on its own. Different developers around the world create apps that can integrate with the Splunk, easily with API. So it is very easy for a lot of people to use and customize to their own environment. So let me talk about the major key feature that we need to know for Splunk. The first thing is we have to understand is first is the Splunk forwarder. So Splunk forwarder in this instance means a receiver, like the agents that I talked about earlier that needs to be installed on each of these endpoints. So the Splunk forwarder will be installed on, for example, your Windows server or your database server, or your application server, or whatever your endpoint. So it's just an agent that will be installed to collect logs, SIS log, application log, security log from your endpoint or firewall logs, and send them to what we call a Splunk indexer. So the indexer is where Splunk store the logs. So it indexes those, so it processes the incoming logs, the machine data logs. It processes those logs and store them in form of an index, as a physical file on the server. So that whenever you are searching for events, what will happen is that the search head we go and search the indexer and say, okay, this person is looking for this particular information, kindly provide it. So the indexer will search for that information and provide the feedback. So those are the key components of Splunk. The search head that is used for searching. You as a cybersecurity analyst, what you do is that most of the time you interact with the search head using the Splunk search language, right, to filter for events, right? That search request will go through Splunk indexer and provide the data to you. While the Splunk folder gets data continuously from the source, from various sources like this. Now, so those are just the basic components of the Splunk. So also, so this is just a theoretical explanation of what I've just said. The folder collects the data from remote machines, and ensure that they are indexed in real time. The indexer processes the incoming data in real time, and the search head is what you as a user interacts with to search for information, right? Also now when information or when the events are indexed, what Splunk will do is that Splunk will add a default metadata to this event. So the default metadata are source, host, and source type. So what is source? Source is the part of the input data. So the name, right? The name of the file that you're uploading. For example, I would say if it's a Windows security log, the source name will be Windows security log. That's the name, the input file, the name of the input file you are trying to bring into Splunk. The host, of course, is customizable. You are going to write maybe a window. If it's a window log, you're going to put it as window, maybe base 64 log or Windows server log. So it's just like the name you are giving to that particular log file. Then the source type, most of the time when you upload data into Splunk will analyze the data, search the parameters of the data. So, okay, this is a Linux log file, this is a Windows log file, this is a firewall log file based on the parameter. But you also can change or customize the source type. You understand? So the source type is okay. This kind of info, this kind of log is actually Linux. It is not Windows, so that it is easy for you to search. So index, by default, if you don't set an index, it is by default is set to main index, right? So the next thing I want to talk about is okay, the various ways you can upload data to Splunk. The first one is manually through an upload option. That is what we are going to use for the lab upload because sorry, because of the time. So we are just going to upload raw logs into Splunk, right? Then also the monitoring option, provide one-time or continuous monitoring of files. So you can monitor files or scripts, also or network ports. That's another option. Then the main one that is commonly used for, especially in banks, are the forward option. Here, the forward option, you are going to install the forwarder that we talked about here. Once the forwarder is installed on this endpoint, you are of course going to use the forward option. That what it means is that subsequently you are expecting that logs from the source is sent. So the forwarder will forward those new updates, new logs that are being generated, or on a scheduled basis to Splunk, right? So that you can index it and search for relevant information. Now, this is just an overview of how Splunk looks like. So I've created one. So I sent a guide. Maybe after the lecture, you guys can look into it. Very easy, within 10-15 minutes, you are up creating one. So this is like the user interface. The first thing we have up there is the application bar, where the various apps, like I said, the Splunk, one of the major components of Splunk is that it is made up of a lot of applications. I will tell you, for example, Sophos, or let me say Cisco. Cisco has a developer can come up and develop a Cisco app that you can integrate with Splunk to get data from Cisco firewall, for example. You will see a lot of those application here. Once you go to app, this app part, you will see all you need to do is just to install, just like your phone, you are going to Google Play Store app to download and install. That's how it works too. So the only thing that most of those apps, they are not free, right? You have to pay, they are licensed for you to use them, right? So that's why we have the app bar. Then we have the search bar, where we definitely going to be using to search for information. Or we have the time range picker, right? We have the time range picker, where you can narrow your search to a specific time frame, right? So we also have the events, where you will see the number of events, the patterns. It will show you the variation in the events that is being captured, statistics and visualization in terms of the graphical illustration of your events, right? And also a major key part that we are going to be paying attention to, apart from this search bar, is the field. As you can see, we have selected field and interesting field. Splunk by default have 3 selected fields. The host, like I talked about, the host, the source, and the source type that we described, I think earlier in this part. You are going to see this in the demo. I'm just trying to explain. Also, these are how the Splunk will display your events, the various events, your web Apache logs, or Linux log, or Windows logs, as the case may be. So let's talk a little bit about field, because it's something that we are going to be interacting with a lot. So field are searchable keys or value pairs, right, in your event data. Like, as you can see, these are fields. These are fields that we are talking about. Area underscore code. So field is unique to a log. So that you have, for example, area underscore code for Linux log doesn't mean that the same area underscore code applies to Windows log. So the first thing as a security analyst is to get acquainted with the kind of logs that you are getting into Splunk, or whatever SIEM device you are using. You should be able to say, okay, these are the parameters that comprises of this log that you can use for your search, right? So also between the search, by default, we have an AND operator. You can specify, we have different operators that we can use to connect different fields together, and or not, as the case may be. We'll see some of them in our demo very soon. Also, okay, so this also still explaining some the field, the 2 types of field that we have: the selected field and the interesting field. So the selected field is what you will see by default. Interesting field are other parameters in the log that you are not going to see. So, but if you're interested in those fields, you can click and add. So you can click and add an interesting field and add it to selected field, so that it will be displayed, in the event that you want to see. I'll see demonstrate that very soon. So I just want us to go through some basic basic terminologies before we start the practicals. So, okay, so this is an example of a search language for Splunk, right? The first thing is saying index is equals to web. Like it's telling you that, okay, this is a web log, right? Based on the log that you have uploaded. Source type, like I explained, so this source type, you can name it or you can go on with the name from Splunk. So this, the source line is saying that this is the name of this, the source type. But of course, for example, you don't know the full name of the source type. You could just put the begin, you can start the name and put a wildcard so that it can get that name. Of course, so these are other parameters, so like status based on the parameters that we have on the log. So I want you to take note of the pipe. So what the pipe will do is that it will take, after processing the first event here, it will take the result and move it to the next event. Just like, I think, just like other SIEM language, SIEM search language syntax. Most of the SIEM vendors use pipe to pass information. I think even Linux, you can use pipe to pass information, like if you are finding using find or locate. So so this is also an inbuilt command. Start it will help you to calculate some of the field that has been processed from here, and it will help you to calculate based on your requirements, right? Just basically on your requirement. So these just tell us that we can use functions, we can use inbuilt command, of course, and also we can concatenate our results to based on what we want to get as our final output. Right? So this is just a syntax to show you on how you can search for events using Splunk. Then let's just discuss some of the best practices. Then we move on to what to the demo. So time is the most efficient filter, of course. So the first thing I would expect that as a security analyst, if you are looking for a log, the first thing that you should look out for the time frame. When does that occur, so that you can narrow your search to events that are very important. You know, so also specify one or more index value at the beginning, just like you see here. You see, you have to specify. So if you don't specify an index with the search keyword, of course, very correct. But the thing is that it's going to take longer time to process data, you know, to bring out the output. So when the more detail you specify in your search, the better and the quicker your results, right? So that's why it's like recommended for you to specify an index at the beginning of your search. So include as many search terms as possible. So if you want to find events with errors and SSHD, for example, and 90% of the events include errors, but only 5% include SSHD. Include both value in the search, right? It's very important also to include both value. For example, you are looking for a failed password attempt, right? Don't just look for failed alone. Make sure you also search for password so that you will be able to get a cleaner result, right? So make use of search term as specific as possible. So searching for access deny is always better than searching for deny, because searching for deny, we have other details, and all you want is access deny. So be specific, be more specific when you are looking, when you are trying to search for details, right? So these are some of the best practices. Also, filter as early as possible. For example, remove duplicate events. So there's also a command for you to like dedupe, for you to remove duplicate events so that you can have the right facts from the events that you're trying to search for. So avoid using wildcard at the beginning or middle of a string. So the best way to use wildcard is to use them at the end of the string, not at the beginning of the string. So because it's going to take long time for you to get your results. So best is put the first specific string, then put your wildcard, not like this. So okay, also when possible, use or instead of wildcard. If you already know if you are familiar with your log parameter, you can use or better than wildcard, right? So, okay, let's talk about, so this is an example, as you can see. In this case, index is equals to wildcard field password. In this case, what you are just trying to imply is that you should search for all indexes. You know, you are putting your scope towards all indexes and you're looking for failed password attempt, right? You're looking for failed password attempt. But if, for example, you just want to look for failed password attempt in a Linux log file, you should specify the Linux log file in the index, right? Or your source type. You can include that so that your search is very specific, right? So also in terms of IP, searching for IP, you can search for IP using classless interdomain routing format, or you can search for IP in this format, right? Whatever Splunk you understand what you are trying to look for. You know, also, like I said, so you can also use, so it's not that it's bad for you to use wildcard. If you don't have an idea about the range of field, right, in that log, it's very, very useful to use wildcard. Just as you can see here, I don't know all the, maybe it is access1.log or access2.log, whatever, since access is in the beginning, just bring whatever logs that start with access for me, and and filter for such information, right? So also we can use relational operators, as you can see in on the slide. So one important thing also for us to take note is not these two operand. Most people make mistake, especially when they are using not equal to or not command. And there's a difference between the two, especially if you are using them for your search. So for example, let's take a look at these two examples. For example, you are saying status is not equal to 100. Maybe you are looking at an Apache log, for example, and you want to search for all events where the status, the HTTP status is not 200. What do you do? For example, you can just say status is not equal to 200, right? The result will be, it will return events where status field exists and value in the field does not equal to 200, which is very fine, which is expected. Now, but most times, some I've seen engineers that they want to look for this is what they want to look for, but they will be using not status equal to 200. This is quite different. This will give us a wrong data. Why? Because it will give us this information. It will include this, and also it will include all the events where status does not exist. So it will affect, it will include not, it will bring out all the events where status does not exist, and also where status does not equal to 200. So if that is what you are looking for, of course, you will use this command. But if you are just looking for HTTP status not equal to 200, don't use this. This is the best to use, right? So it's something that most people make mistake on. So let's talk about table. In case, for example, you want to ensure that your search result comes out in a table, all you need to do is add a pipe, put the table command, and put the name of the field, just like this. So you can see index is equals to web, source type is equals to this, then put a pipe to say, okay, pass the event, pass it to the table command. So table will it will put your result in a tabular format, right? So that you can see it just as you have it here. So why I'm showing all this is because we are going to see them in our demo. So okay, I think this now. Let me talk about. Okay, so these are also some of the transforming commands used by Splunk. For example, if you want to remove duplicates, you can use the DDoS to sort, maybe to sort your record from ascending to descending. You will use the sort command. We have the stat. If you want to see the statistical results of your data, you use the stat. Like I've just talked about table. So if you want to see the first 10 or first 20 results, can you stop? So these are just some of the key terms that we are going to be using for our demo. Also, how do we generate reports for Splunk? Once you have your results here, all you need to do is come to reports on this save as, to see your reports, and you can generate your report. You can generate it in any, maybe in a pie chart or in a bar chart format. Any of these formats goes. And so these are simple, these are examples of Splunk search command that we are going to be seeing. This is how the source, or it's just that it's something that over time you are going to be getting yourself familiarized with. And I've come to discover that different SIEM solutions have their own language, searching language, that you have to understand to make sense of data. So for example, here, this is an example that I'm trying to do. What I'm trying to do here is to search for all failed password attempts via port 442 or SSH failed password attempts. As you can see, this is a way to search for information. And we are going to see that very soon. Okay, so let me go to my browser so that so how many of us have the file that I sent to you now? You have the file. Okay, sure. Okay, can you see? I sent this to you guys, just not quite long. Can you see my screen, guys? Hello?
Yes, we can see, but did you put it, have you put it on this chat?
No, I sent it to Toby and
Yes,
Roland.
this to be speaking. Yeah, this to be speaking. But
okay.
I'm on my mobile, so
okay. I sent it to Roland to send it to your
okay. Can you just share on this chat?
Okay, so I will just go through what I shared to you guys in case so that if you want to do it on your own, it's easy. Okay. So you copy this URL. You copy this URL to you copy it, then you open it. This is it, right? Or the next thing you do is just to go to Splunk Cloud Trial. Then you create what's it called, an account. So you just create an account here. So you sign up and create an account with a valid email address. Once you do that, this is what will come up. So you get, of course, your email. So Splunk will respond to you and send you this, right? Yeah. So they will send you a username, SC admin, and a temporary password so that you will just click here and update your password, right? That is what I did. So once you open this link, it will show up like this, right? For you to update, change your password, right? So once you change your password, that's all, you are into Splunk. And I'm going to show you this platform, my own right now. So this is mine. So this is Splunk. This is how it's going to be. So this is how it's going to come out, right? So I want to, just a minute, please. I want to do something. I want to delete a log and re-upload it back so that you see how logs are uploaded on Splunk. So currently I've deleted the log source, my Linux log source. So I want to upload it back so that you guys can see how I uploaded. As you can see, there's no record. There's no record currently for this. So we are going to do that. We are going to start from uploading it. So once you create your account and you updated your password, this is where you come. Then you go to settings and you come to add data, right? So like I said, because this is a demo, we are going to use, because this is a demo, we are going to use, I sent the link for that raw file that you can use. Once you click here, you will be able to download these 3 files that you can upload to for your own lab, right? So I already have them on my system. So what I'm going to do is to upload them again. Let me come. Okay, so you come to upload. So once you click, like I said, you click on settings, add data, and you come to the upload from my system. So you look for where the file is located. This is it. Then on your system, then it's going to upload. While it's uploading, so this is the step that I sent you guys to upload. So when you download the data, is going to be in a compressed format. You're going to uncompress the files and upload them individually. As you can see, so I put all the steps that are required for you to do this, right? So let me check. So it's still uploading. Okay.
While this is uploading, let me ask a quick question, Nelson.
Okay.
So, folders.
Yeah.
How soon can you get? Okay, no. Let me ask this: if you want to get this log on your own system,
yeah,
how do you generate it?
If you want to get this log, so you know the log is okay. If you want to use the window event log on your system, for example, you know those logs are already on your system. They already reside on your system today. You have security logs on your system. You have what's it called? So if it's a firewall, for example, you can, or any other maybe how do I put, like an endpoint, for example, you can generate syslog. All you need, what the folder would do is like, it's just a .exe file that you install on that endpoint. You now all it will require from you is the IP address of the Splunk server so that it can connect to it. So during the installation of the folder, you just put the IP address. Then you will now specify which kind of log you want to generate, you want to forward. So you will see it on the folder to say, okay, is this syslog or window event log, right? So once you select all those options, it will now start, and the installation of that folder is successful. So whenever there's a new window event log on your system, the folder will move and move those logs to the Splunk server. That's what it does. It will upload them to the Splunk server. So you have to ensure that there's connectivity between the Splunk server and the forwarder, because that is what will be moving, uploading the log. Just like we see uploading. So it's just being like the forwarder is doing this automatically on your endpoint.
Okay, I get that. Thank you. Let's continue. Thank you.
Sorry, I have a question. Sorry, I joined in a bit late. I did not get the meeting notification on time.
Okay,
I don't know if I can ask the question now.
Please, let's complete the class so that we're not going to delay the answer. So let's type all our questions, please. Let's compile it so that I take it one by one. All right,
okay.
Thank you.
So we have uploaded our log file like this. The next thing we are going to do is to we click on next. So this is the source. This is the source type. As you can see, source by default. What's it called? Let me show you guys. So you can see this is the name of the file, right? Then when I upload it on Splunk, that is the source. That is source. So the source we let this portal let you to see how Splunk will interpret the logs that you've just uploaded. To say, okay, this is Splunk is saying that this is how I'm interpreting the log that you've just uploaded. So if you are fine with it, you just move on to next, right? Then sorry. So we have the source, but now I need to select a source type. So I need to go, this is a Linux log. So I'll go to operating system, then I'll go to Linux secure. So I have my source type as Linux secure. I have my source as this, which is the name of the log. Then I move on to the next parameter. So yeah, I'm just going to use what I have, what I sent to you guys, so that it will be easy for us to see. So this is a web application log for on Linux. So you can name it anything you like, right? You can give it a host name. So this is where you put the host, the name, like I explained to you guys the other time. So after putting this, the review, these are the parameters, then you submit, right? So it's submitting, then it's uploading that file. So at this point, what is happening that is going is it's going to index the file and store the file on the log server. So so once this is done, then we'll go to the search part to explore some of the information. I think those are just those are just the steps required to upload data on Splunk. Okay, so somebody is asking if there's an open source alternative to Splunk. Yeah, there are open source. I think there are open source SIEM. Of course, like Wazoo. I know of Wazoo, but and I also know of Alien Vault has an open source SIEM too. No, but Splunk, I think is the free trial for the cloud. The cloud version, the free trial is about 15 days, while the on-prem version is like I think about 30 days or thereabout. Okay, so right now we've successfully uploaded our file. We'll go back to the home page. Then we want to see confirm the details within our file. Okay, so also, before I move on, these are what I was trying to explain to you guys earlier. These are the various apps that you can use. These are various applications that you can connect. You can connect with your Splunk, you know. So it's Splunk is very, very flexible, not just for cybersecurity purpose, but for different various form of analytics, you know, web monitoring. It has a lot of applications, right? Currently about 1,000 apps, right? So that you can use to integrate. Some of them are not free. Some of them have free trials that you can use. So okay, so let me go to research. Okay, right now we can see let me just put source. I want to check for how many source data we have currently. I'm going to do a wildcard search. And because we are using a manual data, I'm going to do an all-time search. This is where you can pick the time range to narrow your search. So because you're not using real-time data. So you can see from this part, these are events. These events that we have about 195 events currently. Now, the events are being pulled out from three different sources. Three different sources, as you can see. This is the one I did just now. This was the ones I did earlier, right? So these are the three different sources of our events, and there's different source type too that we name our events, right? And also it's showing that we have event from two different hosts. So what can we make of this data? I'm going to run through some information. One of them is we are going to be checking through two major. One is the Linux, and the second one will be the access.log. So the Linux log is for the web server, and the access 30 days log is for the web application. So we are going to be seeing some common use cases, right? That that are very conversant, that a lot of cybersecurity analysts might be seeing on a daily basis. Now, the question is, let me say, as a security analyst, I'm in charge of monitoring my company's network. The first thing I do on a daily basis is to come out and say, okay, how many failed logon events, for example, do we have in the logs? So what I want to do is this: I want to search for failed logon events. There are two ways I will do that. I'll do this, I'll do a failed, in case you have fails or failed. So I'm going to do fail with wildcard, then I'm going to do something like, because the most common use cases that we have is around brute force attack. So is there any failed password attempt in the log for that we have at the moment? So it's going to check, okay, for anywhere we have failed. So I'm doing a wildcard, I'm using the AND operator, I'm using search, so I'm searching for any failed password attempt anywhere right now. So from what I'm seeing, if I'm looking at my selected field, I'm seeing that how many source type is, so you can see that we have failed logon attempt from our web server and our application server. So if you look at the count, this is very uncommon. If you look at the Linux server, we are having about 49,000 failed logon attempts. So it is something that you need to look onto, because when you have so many failed logon attempts on a particular from a particular server, it's something that you have to investigate. So let's go on to start investigating this at the time. So you can click on this. So you see what happens. It has added the source to the search field. Are we seeing it, right? So right now, the only source we are having now is the Linux log, so that we can streamline our search, right? So the question now is, we have over 49,000 failed logon attempts. We want to see how many, where is this coming from? We want to review the log to say, okay, let's have an understanding about the parameters that we have in this log. You can see that we have failed password for invalid Ubuntu user from this IP address on this port and SSH, right? So these are the parameters that we have. I would like to see, okay, we have an IP address. From my experience, I would like to include IP address, because why? Because if you take a look at this log, you will see that the IP address is not just one. We have different IP addresses here. So I want to also include my IP address from this interesting field. I want to add it to the selected field. So what do? I will come, can go down to IP. You can see that what this 100 plus means, that we have 100 plus IP addresses, right, with failed logon attempts. So that means you are going to start investigating, because when you have more than 2 or 3 failed logon attempts, it's something that you will need to investigate. So when there are now more, it's something that you seriously now need to investigate. So we have a lot of IP addresses that have failed logon attempts. So I'm going to include IP address to my search to make sense, right? Also, another interesting field I'm seeing here is process. You can see we have just one process. It's telling us that all the failed logon attempt is coming from just one process, which is SSH, right? So it is something that we need to investigate. So how do I add the IP address from interesting field to selected field? All you need to do is just click the IP address like this and add it and click yes. Selected, yes. So it will be added to the selected field, right? Also, I want to add the process, because it will be easy for me to search like this, right? So okay, so is it added? Okay, the process. So what did you, so you guys, I want you to note something. You see that the selected field that we have, you will see them here, all the selected. So when you add a selected field, you will see them at the bottom of each of the logs. The IP address, the host is showing that the web application is showing the process that the user is trying to log on, the process that the user is trying to use for logon, and the source of the log and the source type, right? So we can see that we have various, what's it called? We have various IP address. So the next thing I want to do right now is I want to be able to say, I want to search for accounts. I want to do accounts, right? I want to do accounts by IP address. Okay, so what I'm seeing is okay. So I want to do accounts to classify all my IP address. I want to see the total number of counts. Start counts by IP address. Sorry, just a minute. Source type, source. Okay, let's see. Okay, so it's classifying both IPs and ports together. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to remove the ports and the ports aspects. So start. Okay, so what I've just done is to first thing to list the top most IP address that have failed logon attempts. So from here, what I'm seeing is that I have what's it called? I have this set of IP address. I'm seeing that this IP address has a total count of 999 failed logon attempts, right? We are going to analyze some of them one by one. I just want to show you. So this is top 20. If you want to reduce it, all you need to do is add, you can maybe reduce it to 10 for you to see the top what's it called, top IP with the failed logon attempt. So if I click on this IP address to view event, I want to view the event to have some sort of visibility onto what is happening. And if on the ports, gather much details on what is happening on this IP address, we can see that for example, our search has changed. So currently we are just searching for this IP address alone. And I'm just trying to make sure to see if there's any other details around the different. Okay, so what I'm seeing here is that apart from port 22, I'm seeing that the IP address is also attempting to SSH using other ports like port 1697, 4395. We have different ports from here. So for me as a security person, I would want to investigate this because this is not a normal behavior. This is abnormal. This is not. This is like you are having some sort of brute force attempt, right, to gain entrance into a system at this point. So I'm also going to take a look at the other IP address so that we can just see the behavior of what is happening at the moment. Okay, somebody dropped a question. Have search parameter at least. So can I have a search parameter at least the common ones as snipeness so that I don't have to type? Yes, of course. Yeah, very, 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 very. In fact, that's the smartest thing to do, right? So for me, what I do is that I think is Toby still in this call? Hello?
Yes, I'm with you.
Okay, so why I'm calling his name is this. So for me, that brings me to this question. You can see if you don't have some sort of notepad for your stuff, that means you're not very serious, to be honest with you, because there are a lot of stuff to do. I have a lot of, I think Toby has talked about this. If you have a search, make sure you index, make sure you search, because there's so much you are doing. You have to work with a lot of resources. So for me, every search that I do, I index it. You can index it on a notepad, which is for me the best, something that you can reference to and get by on, right? So it's something that, of course, that is very important. So that's to answer that question. I would say, of course, you can do save all your searches like this. You can just save it so that you don't need to be typing them again. Like I think that's what I would do. So let me just drop it this part in case we want to come back to that. So sorry. Yeah, man. Okay, so we can go back to our count to take it. So this set of IPs, for example, if I'm I'm talking about a real life scenario now. If I'm working on a project and this is what I'm seeing, these are the first go-to IPs that I need to investigate. Why are they having? I want to investigate who have this IP, whose system have this IP, how long have the user been using it, what are you trying to do? You understand why are you using the SSH? Is it that you forgot your password, or what are you trying to achieve? You need to investigate further, right, on this log to make sense. So these are signs of brute force attack, right? So now let's talk about what other use case do I have in my head? I'm just trying to remember. Okay. So let's take a look at the other source. Let me just go back. There's a lot we can do with all this log, to be honest with you. So let me take a look at this log. Now, let's investigate a little about our is it called? Sorry. Yes, our web application log. Now, let me create this scenario. You are a cybersecurity analyst, and you are working for a company that have so much internet presence, right? You are responsible for making sure that we don't have cross-site scripting, DDoS attack on our web application. There are certain things that you need to be paying attention to, right? And the first of all is you want to check on the GET requests. You want to just be familiarized about the kind of log that you have currently from different IPs. What are their parameters so that you can use them for search? For example, you want to check that we have a Java session ID. Is it unique? We have status that is recorded, right? You want to be sure that it's not. So as you can see, we have different status, HTTP status here. That we have apart from 200. So we want to investigate why, for example, why are we having HTTP status 404, for example, something that we need to pay attention to. So let's take a look at, I want to ask a question. How do we, for example, gather, how do we search for the top list of IPs that are visiting our website? that is also a way to check if our website is being compromised, is under an attack or a DDoS attack. This is something that we also need to pay attention to, right? So you have to keep at every time, monitor the top clients, IP address, external IP address visiting your website. How do you do that, right? So we are going to query for that. We're going to do a get, then you can do a pipe, for example. Then let's say the top command is used to query the top events from your log. So then we want to limit our top to say, let me say, we can say 10 or 20. Let me put 20 our top. Then let me put it as this got 20, right? So I want to get these, of course. Then what else? I'm getting clients, right? I'm looking for IP addresses, right? So the question is, why am I using client IP address? So let me do this. If I use IP, what will come out? Will it come out? Are we going to get any results from here? So I need somebody to type on the chat. Why do you think I'm getting no results? What do you think, guys? Why is this not giving me the right answer? Do you guys have any opinion, suggestion? You can type on the chat. What do you think is the reason why I'm getting this, even though the command seems correct? Okay, somebody just dropped in the chat. No source, no IP specified. I put IP. I placed IP here. So somebody say no source. Okay, is that the reason? But see, okay, look at this. I'm using get now, right? I didn't specify source. Why am I getting record for only gets? I told you guys earlier that even if you don't specify source, right, it's optional, but based on best practice is good, right, to specify your source, of course, but that is not the answer. Is there any other person? Okay, so let me bring back this. So if you don't specify source, what does it mean? What does it mean, guys? If you don't specify source, it will take a search on all your sources. That's what, and it's just going to take longer time. The lag is going to take the latency is going to be high when the throughput, right? So, but when you specify your source, it's going to streamline your search. So now, the reason why this is failing, I will tell you. That's why is the first thing is not to jump and search. The first thing is to familiarize yourself with your log. Now look at this log. I want you guys to take a look at this log. We have the host as web host. That's the name of the host, right? This is our source. This is our source type. These are status. This is our Java session ID in case, especially for web application that uses cookies, right? So that for session management, right? Now this is our client IP. Can you see what I'm seeing, guys? The client IP, look at the field. The field that I'm using here is IP. What should I be using? What do you guys think? What should I be using based on this search? To search, I should be using what? I should be using client IP, not IP, right? I should be using this because that's why it's very important to familiarize yourself with the field of your value, right? Yeah, thank you so much, Chinanza. So we should be using the client IP for this. So let's change. I'm going to change this to client IP. I'm going to change this to client IP and see what we have next. So we can see that we have a record. Why? Because this, don't forget, these are field. We have to use the field in our search, the exact field in our search. So what is this telling us? These are the top clients. These are the top IP visiting our website. What does it mean? Guys, I want to show you something. If you are not sure, these IPs could be from an attacker. These IPs could also be from a legitimate user. How are you sure that this IP is not a malicious IP? Who can tell me, please? Anybody, any suggestion? How do we know? How do we investigate that these IPs address are legitimate and not malicious? Well, it's not an 100% way to know, right? But I'm going to show us some ways that I use. What I do is that if I'm on a client's network, I get a list of IPs that are trying to connect. The next thing I do, I visit VirusTotal. You can go on VirusTotal, right? VirusTotal is an open threat intelligence platform. You can use it to search for IPs address. You can also go on what's it called, hybrid analysis, also to search for IPs domains. These are very important platforms, right, that you can use. So also there's also a platform that you can use to search for malicious information. These are tools that you'll be using every time now and then. So I'm just going to take one or two of those IP and search for them and to see the reputation of that IP address, right? So you can see that no security vendor have flagged this IP as malicious, right? So that means that IP is legitimate. So especially for top IP addresses that visit your site, it's very important that you ensure that those IPs are not malicious by checking open source intelligence platform like VirusTotal. Then also we can, sometimes I like to search other vendors, not just on VirusTotal alone. So what I'm going to do is this, I'm going to drop a search. I'm going to drop these here. Oh, sorry. Sorry. Yeah. Let's cancel. Yeah. I dropped it at the wrong place. Let me search the last part. So like this, you can search for the reputation of an IP address to see where is it coming from, which CDN is currently being used, right? So if it's malicious, you are going to see this IP, especially external domain, right? So on hybrid analysis, okay. So from what I can do, you can also search for other IP address to be sure that the number of IP address trying to visit your website are legitimate, right? So now let's take a look at some other important things to search out apart from looking at the IP addresses. So I think I note down something else to do. Okay. So for example, now let's say we want to query, want to do this. We want to take a look at all the HTTP response code. Yeah, that's very important. How do we search for that? Because from what we noticed, you can see that it is not only 200 we are seeing, right? So it is important to also search for other response code to see what is happening and why we are getting those responses. So what do we need to do? We can search for the top, let's say 10 response code that we are having. So we'll do this. Then you use your pipe. Then top, like I said, then we can do a limit to say we want to search for the top code. Let's do this. Then put in status. Why am I using status, guys? Why am I using status? I'm using status because that's the name of the field here. Yeah. So okay. So I think somebody dropped questions. Okay, so somebody asked a question which is very interesting, and he's saying that, but sir, what if the IP is actually malicious and the user is using VPN? How do we deal with that? Wow, such an interesting question. So now the thing is that apart from using that IP address search, right? Like what I did, I think we might just need to, let me just copy this out. So if the user is using a VPN IP address, right, that means the user is trying to do something. It's either is want to exfiltrate data out of the network, or is trying to cause, try to maybe drop a malicious payload on the web server, right? For example, it's trying to, so you now need to study. That's where you now need to take your time to go through what is this user about, right? What is this user trying to do? Like, for example, this particular user, you can take your time to look at 2-3 days data and see what is the behavior of this user. For example, you can see a status 503 here. Sorry, who can remind me again? What was 503? Status 503 is, I think I've forgotten it. So we have to look at, do we have status 404, let's say request timeout, find not found. You know, you want to take a deep dive to understand what the user is doing. You understand? So that's the search of whether the IP is malicious is just one of the checkers, not all, for you to base your facts, right? So that is what I'm trying to say here. So once you do that, you'll be able to come out with some findings to say, okay, the user is trying to exfiltrate data, or the user is trying to put in some malicious web payload. So if I go back to the status of the, what's it called, the HTTP status that we have on the website, you can see that, of course, we have 200 responses. Okay, we have 503. I've forgotten what's 503 about. What's 503? Status service is unavailable. Service is unavailable is 503. Something that we might need to check with our developers team, right? Then we have 406 here. 406 is find not found. One of the, as a security person, I'm trying to streamline this to security basically. For security, what I will be looking at is 406 find not found. Why? Because why is a user trying to search for file on my server? You understand? Is the user trying to search for password files, or is the user trying to search for different files? You understand? On a server. So you saw what I did just now. I click on the status. Someone is saying something. Okay, so this is a search for 406. Why am I like I said to you guys, because 406 is file not found. I want to see what is the user trying to do, because if I'm having a high rate of find not found, is something as a security person you need to pay attention to, right? Why am I getting this error, right? So let's take a look at some logs to see the event. You see that let's look at the get requests. This is what is get products.screen, and you're getting 406, right? Can we scroll down to see, is there any session? Is there any some sort of PDF files that the user is trying to access, or what is causing this, right? So okay, so to make that up, I'm going to do this. We have a 406, then I'm going to put that to say what are the top clients that have 406, right? Top, I'm going to do a limit again to say equal to 10, sorry, equal to 10, and I'm going to search for client IP address, right? So do we have top clients that return 406? How many? Okay, so this client return 406, and like I said, 406 is not acceptable. Oh, sorry. I think not 406, 404. Let me see. There's one that is final found. I'm looking for. Apologies. Okay, not found error. Page not found, or file not found. This is what I'm looking for. Please, sorry. So let's do this. Okay, so we have this set of IP IP addresses that is returning falses. So we have to also do some analysis into the logs to see why they are returning falses. What is the user trying to do on our site that is returning falses, right? It's something that we need to pay attention to, right? So take a look at the get request for, okay, sorry, 404, sorry, I say falses. 404, so, so this is not just a, one-time thing. It takes some time for us to analyze logs, from SIEM to come out with IOCs, facts. So I'm just trying to look, okay, I'm just seeing, this is just basically what I've been seeing. User is trying to get this. This is just the only file, HTML file that I'm seeing. And now it's called as falses. Okay, so I'm just trying to take a look at if any sort of PDF or access to, okay, so we have the next tab. Okay, so at this point, on a very real scale, if I'm the engineer, the security engineer, I would talk to my DevOps team, the developers. I would like to find out more information about this file, right? You want to know what this file is all about. What does it entail? Is this something that users should be clicking? You understand? Because there are certain files that users should not be searching for, except you're an hacker, right? So I want to make my findings and say, okay, you guys, you take your research to the other team, report it to them, and say, okay, I'm seeing for this stuff, right? For events like product screen.html. Is this something that is okay for user to search? You understand? It's something that we need to pay attention to. Okay, so I think I've really taken so much time. At this point, I would like to say, let me pause so that everyone can get up to this speed, so that we can now move on to look at other ways where we can search and discover IOCs. I don't know if you have any questions. Sorry for taking this long. Thank you. So, Mr. Toby and are you there, Toby? Hello? So please, if you guys have any question, you can ask me at this point, so that we could, I don't want to go too deep, so that you guys can start yours, get to this point. I'm also going to share, if you need some queries that you can use, I'm going to share that with you guys, for you to see how it works, how you can spot, brute force attack, malicious injection, and the likes.
Okay, this is AB. Good evening. I've been wondering what is in this visualization tab. I know that if you have a form of graphical representation of data, it helps to quickly see things. So I was wondering if what's there, and if it's possible to do some form of nice chart where I can see at a glance, so that I don't have to read too much.
Okay, so that's a good question. Let me just go back to this. Our search is still on it. Okay, so if we have this, for example, and we have, so it's like you said, it's just, as you can see, it's a visualization to put your result in graphical order. You can see, right? So in a graphical order, you can simply send this, especially to C-level teams, right? Executive, if you want, if you are responsible for generating reports on a weekly, on a depends. You're not going to send your report like this, of course, right? So you're not going to use the normal event mode that I just showed you to send your report like this. We're not going to do it like this. of course, you would like to put your report in this way. So this is showing us that we have an IP that have a high rate of status 404, which is what's it called? File not found error on our web server. And this is it, right? Then you can come here to generate reports, right? You can generate a report about it. Put the title of your report, and generate the report about it. That's what you can do. So we also have 3 different types of mode. Most of the time, I use the smart mode for searching. You can use fast mode or verbose. So verbose mode will show you all the events, all the field data. You understand? This is very good during investigation. You can use the verbose mode. But smart mode, especially when you are looking out to get a quick search of your event, I normally just use the smart mode. So you can use any of the 2 mode. There's no preference to anyone. So also you can, if you are the admin, you can come and create, for example, you can come and create other users just and limit the roles that they can use. For example, as an admin, you want to ensure that, okay, certain departments can only view record. They can't do a lot. You can just create and assign role. You can just assign role to them, user role, to say, okay, these are what they will be doing, so, or you want to add another user as admin, you create the user and you assign the role to that user, right? So these are just some of the administrative tasks that you do aside from what's it called, from analyzing logs, right? So is there any other question at this point?
Yes, please permit me. Sorry, I couldn't type this down because I was not sure how to put it. If I have a device that is trying to, let's say, access or hack a web application from within a domain, now that domain will have one IP hitting your server or hitting the server of that web application. But from within that IP, that unique IP hitting that server, there will be some clients behind that trying to make those things happen. And if it's, say, let's say, a big organization, and you might maybe suspect that there's something coming up from this organization, meanwhile, somebody who is masking from there, or one user who is trying to be nefarious. And maybe as an IT person, you decide, okay, I will block this IP. And that means that you deny service to everybody within that organization. Is it possible for this device to maybe unmask, maybe to get some form of details about the unique device that is coming from within that domain? I don't know if I asked it correctly, but that's the way it is in my mind.
Okay, so if I get you correctly, so you are talking about a malicious IP address that is being masked, and you are asking if the solution can unmask to see if the reputation of IP addresses, right? I don't know if that's
that sounds so much better. Yes.
Okay, so more like most SIEM solution won't help you unmask IP, right? So I think that would be the work of your firewall, right? So we have firewall, we have there are also devices called, there are DDoS devices, for example. There are firewall devices that can help you unmask IPs, right? So what the SIEM will do, because that's why we have something called defense in-depth layer, in security. Like we don't have a single solution that can provide all the security controls, right? So we have what SIEM solution will help you to basically is get these logs, you understand, and help you to make sense during analysis of a log. For example, like if we have a compromised system on your network, how are you sure that that system is not the only system that is compromised? A SIEM solution will help you to see other systems on that network that is compromised. Why? Because of it's collecting logs from them too. But when you talk about IP masking, there are IP masking solutions that can sit on your perimeter network that ensures that during the incoming traffic or outgoing traffic, the exact IP is being inspected, in terms of packet inspection, packet filtering inspection to ensure that only that certain IP is allowed in. And if it's a malicious IP, it's going to be blocked. Or if it is allowed in and later discovered, then you can blacklist them on the perimeter network. That's as far as I know. That masking, I'm not sure SIEM solution can do masking. Identify or unmask an IP address, right? So it can do that. That's why I see that even though we have a SIEM solution here that we are trying to work on, you can see that I've opened other platforms to help me search to help me confirm other details. Because now, like I said, I checked an IP address, right? So it could be a CNC server. It could be a malicious external IP address. Your SIEM will not throw an alert that this IP address. No, you have to find those. You have to do a search of all those IP addresses. Then come to a platform like this to verify your search. You understand? And check to say, okay, this IP is not malicious, right? So that's why it's an in-depth. It's a defense in-depth methodology, right? So at this point, in fact, so what I was trying to do also earlier was to download. I was trying to like install. This app is one of this. This is a very good app for security analysts too, because a lot of search that you see that we just did with this app, it will help us it has a way to detect malicious event logs, right? Based on how it is being designed. So that's why if I was trying to find a way to install it, but I'm getting a lot of errors, so that we can explore how it works. So that I don't know if you can download it from your own side. It would be nice for you to see how it works. This is a very good app for security. I've used it before, but I don't know why it's not installing for the cloud trial. So I would like to say that you guys go through, try and see what you can do with the solution. And if you have any issue, you can contact me on WhatsApp that you have this and you're trying to do this so that we could talk. I want you to, one of the good things about Splunk, I think Toby is here so that I can round up. One of the good things about Splunk is that it has a free, I think it's on the slide there. It has a free SAT, and it's very useful. I will tell you that for free. That it's helped me during one of the interview I did, because it's good to have some of these things. It's not just that you have the knowledge, you have to prove it too. I'm trying to open that site. If you guys don't mind, it's a free fundamental Splunk certification. All you need to go through is it has about 100-page slide, sorry, 100-page slide that you can go through and you can attempt. See, as you can see, it's free. So it will be nice for me to see you guys go through. I have my it's good, So if you like to explore, you can read on. I will send after this session. I will send resources through Toby to you guys. Then you can read on. I will send you the material that you need. It's just a very simple material, and since you can open a very the trial, you can use this to practice and do the free trial exam, which is very good for you to have on your CV. So that is it. Toby, I think Toby is here now. Yeah, Toby.
One moment, let me find.
Okay, is there any question?
All right. Thank you so much, Nelson. Thank you for this class. There's a lot to unpack. So the recording, we're going to, I think, put it to Roland so I can upload on